You're listening to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. This is episode 137, where we cover some current events happening nationally and even here at our very own shop. Thanks for listening, and as always, we hope you enjoy episode 137 of Range Minded, the current events of December 2020, nationally and locally. Hello and welcome to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. My name is Mark Long, and I am joined, as always, by...
Hey, it's Steve Zimmerman.
And...
As well as Nick Hoffer.
How's it going?
Well, first, I just want to apologize for missing last week. I got stuck in the mountains, so sorry, guys.
That's okay. We're glad to know you're alive.
I know I got back and I was like, oh, shoot, I'm about 2 hours late for the show, but we got stuck in the snow up in the mountains. I took my son out in the Razor, so
yeah, I saw the video. Trip. It looked like it was fun until the very end. Yeah,
it was really fun right until we blew up the front differential in the Razor. That was not fun. Nice. We had to get towed out, but luckily here's the best part of the story. So we blew up the front differential, so we had to get out in two-wheel drive. A random person up there had to tow us out because they had tracks on their Polaris.
Yeah.
Just so happens that guy works for one of my really good customers that runs Point S Tire across the street from my shop.
There you go.
So, yeah, I was in the middle of nowhere and ran into somebody who knew who I was.
Well, that just speaks to your reputation then. Yeah.
So, I guess some people do listen to the show because people obviously know who we are.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing. So, well, yeah, there's and they're probably going to know a little bit more about us now because we're going to talk about all the stuff that's been going on nationally, but also locally. So I guess you could say that Independence Indoor Shooting is a little more famous at the moment.
Yeah, which is great because that means, maybe we'll get more customers. Not that we're not having any customers, but new customers.
Right. Could be. So, yeah, we're going to do some current events because, like I said, there's a lot going on nationally and locally, and I think we all have a couple of different stories to share. So, I think the biggest one, why don't we start local or nationally rather, is that the big news of the last couple of weeks is that Polymer 80 got rated by the ATF.
Yeah, so Polymer 80, if you guys don't know what it is, it's a company out of Nevada that sells 80% lower Glock frames. And I think we've talked about 80% stuff before. You just have to go through the process of drip finish drilling the holes and do some machining on the frame, and then it can accept Glock parts.
So to preface what you just said, that was like, four episodes ago, we talked about 80% being on our must-buy Christmas wish list, whatever.
Yeah,
and we talked. Well, yeah, and we talked about getting them before it was too late because that's probably going to be the first thing that the new administration goes after. Lo and behold, we didn't even make it 3 weeks, and here we are.
Yeah, and it's not like we had any kind of inside information. It was just a pretty good hunch.
Yeah, I guess so. We're predicting the future, I guess, or we just have been in the gun world long enough to know what the deal was going to be.
Yeah. So, this took place, 3 days ago? The field office decided it was time to crack down. So, I guess background on what they're concerned about. Polymer 80 was selling a kit that they called Buy, Build, Shoot. That was a kit, and inside the box came with the lower receiver that you had to do the work on to finish out. All the lower receiver parts, meaning the trigger, the sear, and all that stuff. And it also came with an upper, which is a complete upper slide, but barrel and everything.
Yep.
So, and we were talking about it off air. It was basically a pretty good bargain. Like you got a pretty nice custom gun for a pretty good price. Just took some elbow grease.
Right, and they even actually had 10-round kits on their website as well.
Yeah, as far as I know, they were only selling the 10-round magazine kits.
Okay.
And maybe I was wrong, but that's according to the few stories I read about this. It was pretty much all just 10-round mags. So, which made it legal in some states, most states,
I would say, yeah.
So what also you need to understand is, according to federal law, it is completely legal for us as U.S. citizens to manufacture a firearm in our home.
And that's what I talked about when we talked about 80% lowers, and I talked about the Constitutional Firearm Act in the Second Amendment. And that was where I had asked and needed to do some research and still haven't done, and I probably should now, but I thought there was a limit to how many you could own.
And I don't know about that, but there is regulation. If you plan on selling the gun, then you have to serialize it. Okay? That's what I'd read here. Oh, there's my dog talking to, they reference some ATF rules, and even he's pissed about it.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so ATF decided, all right, this is it. We're gonna visit Polymer 80 because they're breaking the law, and so they visited this company, and I don't know how many agents showed up, but it was a mess. Right? They went in, they told them, hey, we're seizing all of these buy, build, shoot kits, and you need to give us all the information of where they went. And I'm sure Polymer 80 complied. I doubt they were, obstinate about it. I'm guessing usually the door kicker agents that come in to do this, they're not the most friendly. They tend to have an attitude problem.
Well, they said that there was no arrests and no charges that were filed at the time, so you'd assume that they complied. And it also, which the most concerning part was where it says that they seized the records as evidence. And from what I read and saw, that's what the ATF was there for. And I don't know if you guys read the firearms blog, because that was what I read.
Yeah, I've got it pulled up right now.
And so my thought is that if you read just towards the bottom of it, where it talks about they're getting more crimes committed with these built guns, right? And there's two that they reference, which was that school shooting and those two sheriff's deputies during that wasn't a riot, but during those protests that were shot in their car. That was a Polymer 80 kit.
Right.
So I would assume that the reason they wanted the records was because they're trying to find these criminals, but really, who knows if they bought them from them directly.
And I muscled through the Wall Street Journal story about this too. The Wall Street Journal is not my it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite newspaper by any means. But they went through. Oh, they're ghost guns, and that's the fear, right? You hear that fear, the fear word, ghost gun, which they're untraceable, they're untrackable. Well, then you read through there, and it doesn't say Polymer 80s were responsible for a lot of crime. They just said ghost guns were part of the problem. And so that tells me that any of these other 80% companies that are out there, same thing's going to take place. They're going to get warrants. And really, what one of the other, I don't know if it was Amoland's story on it, but basically what they're saying is it's kind of a de facto registration of these 80%ers, because now they know who they were sold to and when they got them, and once they start knocking on doors to seize it, and they're not, what is it, the Fourth Amendment? What does it say where the government has to give compensation of market value or whatever for property? Or is that the 14th Amendment? I don't know. You can tell how terrible I am on the Constitution. Anyway, the government is supposed to compensate you for any property seized. The one guy in Nevada that had his Polymer 80 procured or seized.
So hang on there. So they've already showed up to end users' homes.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. Okay.
And I guess they probably got that address from credit card records, is my guess.
Yeah. Yep. And so here on Amolands, they actually have a copy of that cute receipt. Look, receipt for property and other items from the U.S. Department of Justice. And this is what they wrote on the receipt: Polymer 80 ink lower frame, lower parts kit, magazine. And what does it say? Swapped by the ATF?
Swabbed?
What does that say? Man, I can't read their writing. Well, this agent definitely has terrible handwriting as well. Like, it's really bad. Anyway, so he didn't get money, but he did get a nice receipt saying, "Hey, we took your stuff.
This is what we took from you." Interesting.
Yeah, that was on the 10th that his stuff was seized.
Yeah, this just happened.
Interesting. It's interesting to me too, because those things may have been bought in a kit, but who's to say that those things were put together in that order? Like I said, I would purchase one of those Matt might have purchased one of those kits because you can be swapped onto any Glock frame that you want. So there's nothing stopping you from
or whatever, and
Yeah, I could have put it onto a Gen 3 California compliant Glock 19 that I wanted the 10 round mag and the aftermarket slide for.
And but the real problem is this didn't go through Congress. The ATF is out of control. This is just the beginning of a cascade of fun things I think are going to happen in 2021 till 2025. I have very little faith in that agency, where there's no oversight. They can willy-nilly. And there was no information. Polymer 80 had no heads up, which they don't always. But usually there's a rumbling or something. They'll make some kind of a statement, something that there's some kind of a hint,
or like a letter, or something.
Well, lots of times if they're going to do like a inventory or whatever you call it, like they'll tell you we're going to be there tomorrow.
Oh yeah. If it's a compliance thing, they have to tell you.
Yeah.
But they're and we've kind of known this before. They've done rogue things before. But the problem is no oversight. And that's what really frustrates me is we saw it with the bump stocks, which I don't care for. I don't own a bump stock, but I don't think they should be restricted. Like if you can afford it, buy it, whatever. I don't care. Same thing with these kits. It is 100% legal for you to manufacture a firearm in your home. And it's stupid. And when are we going to be able to say, all right, I'm tired of this?
Well, and it's the interesting thing is that it doesn't matter whether you buy all the parts to make a firearm from one vendor or a bunch of different vendors. It's basically the same thing. So why would, I guess, because it's all in one shot, it looks easier to the layman to be able to just put it all together. But I mean, you could make all the same purchases on the same day and get it all delivered the same. You know what I mean?
And that's part of why why Biden has stated that he wants to ban gun parts bought on the internet is because of this whole vision of ghost guns being mass produced out of people's garages.
And the fear is that there's millions of them on the streets, and that's the only thing criminals are using. Criminals are using stolen guns.
They're using guns that get imported from other countries. Like more criminals are using guns that came here from South America than any gun that was produced and manufactured legally in the States. And
maybe some of those came from Fast and Furious.
Yeah, we probably shipped them down there and now they're coming back. But yeah, there's whole documentaries on how many guns a day are coming in from South America and the entire process. Let's crack down on that before we're concerned about what's going on within the country.
Yeah.
And the other thing is they create these 250 murders in DC, and 200 of them were done with these ghost guns. It's easy for them to generate fear that way, and then it makes sense. Oh yeah, we better do something about this. But out of the millions of 80% lower kits, and I'm willing to say there's millions of them out there, not just polymer 80s, but AR lowers and whatever. What is it? Maybe 0.0001% are used in a crime.
Sure.
And how is that an epidemic?
Well, it's probably comparable to the amount of legal guns that are out there that are used in a crime as well, Yeah.
I mean, bad people are going to do bad things no matter what. Criminals are going to steal guns out of cars. They're going to get guns, like Nick was saying, off the black market, where a lot of those come from South America, which come from usually the Philippines or somewhere else that are manufactured in some jungle.
Yeah.
And then who gets the shaft? Johnny gun owner that's just trying to survive.
So you spoke on the ATF with no oversight and being out of control. So I wanted to touch on that before we got too far away from it. So just imagine next year when they have released the reins completely on ATF and said, go get them. Because that's essentially what Biden has said is we're going after these guns, these AR-15s, whatever he calls them. That's the plan. So right now they may have a little bit of rain still on them, but what's going to happen when the gloves come off?
Yeah. It's not going to be 80% kits. It's going to be, who bought this upper? Who bought this trigger group? Where's this going? And then guess what? Once they track down those names, it's basically a gun registration.
Yeah, that's the disconcerting thing, because, you can track stuff through credit card purchases and just any kind of online sales. And that's, who's to say that they couldn't, like you said, go into any online gun retailer or any gun retailer period and say, we're going to take this as evidence.
Yeah. And you know what else they could do? They could, I hope this doesn't give them any ideas, but they could require every part to have a serialized number, and then every part has to go on a 4473.
And then every part is $200 to own.
Well, that's coming down, and you think that's hyperbole? That's
no.
He has said it.
Yeah.
And I know Mark doesn't like it when we get political, but if you guys want a great read, just jump on Joe Biden's website and look at how his gun control team is what their plan is. He's teamed up with Moms Demand Action and other groups. And Beto's going to be the gun czar. That'll be fun.
Well, you're not wrong.
And it's pretty surprising. If you think that we're just blowing smoke up your butt, go read his gun plan.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. It is very disconcerting.
Yeah. And
the scary part is that it's already begun. Like, this is two things in the last 3 months that's already been out of control.
Before the transition of the presidency took place. That should really let you know what the intentions are of the next administration.
Yeah, scary stuff, man.
It's frustrating. And with this ATF raid here with these guys, they also stopped by Brownells.
Really?
Yeah, and so that's a part that I didn't know. So you were telling me that before we came on, and saying that they raided other stores other businesses as well, and I wasn't aware of that. So if you have that pulled up, that's information to me too.
So this is on AmmoLand's website, so it's another good place to get information. And I would suggest reading the articles, and I need to be able to link these onto our Facebook page. But here's a quote from Brownells. The ATF did a visit on our facility on Thursday, December 10th, 2020. For Brian Rep is the VP of Marketing. It's my understanding that they inquired about our sales of Polymer 80 buy, build, shoot kits. Brownells has not, nor does not sell that kit. Polymer 80 continues to be a great partner for Brownells, and we proudly sell their other products. So all the ATF had to do was just jump on Brownells' website and simply do a search. But Brownells doesn't sell that kit. Yeah, they could have saved a lot of time.
Yeah.
So that tells me one more thing, is it's not about the kit.
Yeah, I mean, what were they expecting to find over there,
Yeah.
So speaking of these ghost gun kits, because I always like to kind of consider what's going on locally, right? So some people might not know this, but Lone Wolf Distributors is local to Idaho.
Yeah, it's a great company.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have very similar kits available. Like they've always had their Lone Wolf frame, but then they dropped it in an 80% frame, and they sell that because they're an FFL. They sell it as an actual pistol, or as a kit, or as all the parts, all available through them as a distributor. So that concerns me that we're looking to have that happen here as well.
And maybe with Lone Wolf, where they've been selling it with their serialized frame, maybe they just have to make an adjustment and serialize all those frames.
Right.
But still, I mean, who knows how many thousands of those went out over the last 2-3 years?
And who knows what the ATF's actually after? So maybe they don't. Maybe all they care about is getting them on the one thing, and don't care that they do it the right way over here. Just if you did something we don't like, all we want to do is get that so that we can shut you down completely, or do that.
I really think it's I think it's more nefarious. I really think they're going to try and find ways of incompliance, right, or non-compliance. I'm sure they're looking for that too. But I just think it's a ripple of the actual pebble that's been thrown into the pond.
And so what happens to those end users that bought them? What what are they trying to label those people as? So if you bought that kit and you own that gun, what's the repercussion? Because if it's not against the law, then why can they come and seize it? Exactly. If they can come and seize it, what crime did you commit? Did you commit a crime that is now going to not allow you to be a firearms owner?
Yeah, maybe. Are you going to become a felon maybe then at that point?
And that's my, like, I don't know about this. And I don't know, maybe people haven't thought too much into that, but what happens to the guy who got his stuff seized when they show up at your door and you say, oh, I don't have that. Oh, cool. Come speak with us down at federal prison.
Yeah, most likely it'd be okay. We'll come back with a warrant. Okay, that's great. So then you get a bunch of agents in there. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to catalog everything in your gun safe.
Yeah, let's see what else you got, by the way.
And let's say this hypothetically, because I don't want to call anyone out, but how many gun safes, just like I said, we always are pushing the limits, right? So how many gun safes have a combination of parts that may or may not be to spec?
That's what's called constructive intent, maybe.
Yeah, how many people have an AR pistol that the upper is sitting in their safe on top of a rifle lower?
Yeah.
You never know. One.
I bet you it's at least 10%.
Like that's going to happen, right? I mean, I'm not saying that they intentionally were building an SBR, but maybe they put a combination together to take a picture. Well, that combination now became a felony when the ATF came and searched your safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could have been.
Yeah, constructional intent is there, and they what we see here, they can apparently just make up any kind of law on the spot too. Like, well, you have this forend on here, and look, it doesn't go past the muzzle, and now whatever,
Yeah,
they can do whatever. So I'm sure gun owners of America and other Second Amendment foundations are working on this fervorously.
Well, it's
fervorously.
It is.
You know what I'm trying to say.
Fervorously.
Fervently.
There you go. But it is. I mean, it is disconcerting because of the whole. Especially when you take into the context of the whole. Pistol brace thing. Was it pistol braces were more or less deemed legal? 5 years ago? I think at this point.
Yeah. And really, what that was all about was because SB was doing those braces. They said, well, you didn't count this one as a brace, and this one is different than the one you submitted. So not all pistol braces are illegal yet, but I 100% believe before the middle of next year, there's going to be a problem with those too, any of them. But you never know.
Well, but to bring it back, Nick, you mentioned that, you said people are kind of pushing the limits until it gets taken too far. Do you think that, you think that people need to scale it back a little bit, or maybe you can expand a little bit on that thought?
So me and Steve kind of went back and forth on this when we were talking before on the pistol brace thing. And my fear is this. So we toe the line so tight that, just like I said, if you toe over that line and you put the wrong upper on the wrong lower, you just created something that in the government's eyes is a felony.
Right.
Well, with a lot of the workarounds that we've created for bullet buttons and all of the California compliant components, you could have the wrong combination living in California and you're no longer a gun owner. You're sitting in prison.
Yeah, you're a resident of the state.
You'll never be a gun owner again.
Yeah, I have dealers down there that I talk to, and they're like, yeah, we have people come in and ask us questions all the time, like what makes it legal? And they're like, we refer them to our lawyer because we don't want to give legal advice. But I'm like, yeah, but how many people a day are coming in and showing you a rifle that you're like, take that apart right now and don't put it back together?
And I never saw that.
Yeah, because they don't know. So that's what scares me about like all these workarounds and like not having definitive rulings from the ATF on what is and isn't considered something, because they're very good at being vague. The pistol brace thing,
on purpose, yeah.
Exactly. So they're trying to leave themselves a doorway to come back and say, we didn't say that brace with the red strap was legal. We said the one with the black strap was legal. If you change the strap on the pistol brace, it's now a different product, and you need a letter for that as well.
Well, with a red strap, it's an assault brace, so...
Yeah, exactly. And that's my fear is, so we had 80% AR lowers, and I was always like, oh man, because the minute that stuff starts to get bad, people are like buying up all these 80% lowers. Well, there's obviously a reason why people want 80% lowers, right?
Sure.
And without saying it, we all know what it is.
Well, sure.
And so we did that. And then we went through the whole ghost gun thing with the 80% AR lowers. And then it went to 3D printed gun parts. And then that was the whole California ghost gun thing, was the 3D printer and the 80% AR lowers. Now we're into 80% pistol lowers. Now it's legal to have an 80% pistol lower, but it's not legal to have one shipped with the internal components. Because
there's no definitive answer, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
and that's
thing.
What I'm saying. Like you're putting yourself at risk, which I don't think it should be that way. But for me personally, I never want to toe that line that close.
Yeah, I personally don't. I don't own any 80%ers. For me, it's just too much work. Like, I don't want to deal with it. I get the idea of it. Some of it is, I built my own 1911, but that was a serialized frame. It's fun. It's fun to be able to have the know-how to do that.
And I love the idea of building the gun.
Yeah.
I've done that a lot. I worked for a gun manufacturer, so I love the idea of building the AR, learning all the parts because it makes you understand your gun that much better. But I always tell people when they come to me and they're like, "Oh man, we need to get 80% lowers so that," well, I'm like, stop trying to circumvent the law as far as having things that are off the books, because it just puts yourself at risk. Well, if they want to take the guns, they're going to come and take them. Like if you legally bought it, you're in a better place than if you're trying to hide something.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, and this might not be a very popular perspective, but I think background checks are stupid anyways.
I agree with that.
But I don't know.
Well, they don't do what they're designed to do.
Well, look at a background check. So someone comes into the store, right? They're standing they go over to the computer because they want us to do it all digitally now, right? The ATF doesn't want us calling them. They want us to use the computer system, right?
Yep.
So they go over, they put in their information, they put in their ID, and then it comes back that they're a felon. They can't have a gun. Oh, well, you know what? At that point, that person should be accountable for trying to purchase a gun knowing – it's not like you don't know that you went to prison for a felony.
Right.
They never prosecute those people. They just say no. They slap their hand and say you can't have it.
To be fair, I actually have met some people that were wrongfully accused and were supposed to have their stuff expunged, but the state forgot to file their paperwork, and so he came in to buy a gun, and I'm like, dude, I can't sell it to you, and he was pissed, and then he realized, man, it's not your fault, and it took 2 months.
That situation is much less likely than the person who just tried to buy something and knowing that they weren't supposed. It's just like when you're on probation or parole, you're not supposed to drink or do drugs, right?
Sure.
So when they scan my ID to go in the bar, or they scan my ID at the liquor store, if I'm what are they scanning? Just for the age, or does it pop up and say, "Oh no, those people should be accountable for that too"?
Yeah.
But they're not. They don't. That stuff's not as important. They would rather let the person that got in trouble for getting drunk and killing 5 kids in a car wreck get out and go buy alcohol and not hold them accountable for that, or get out and let the guy who went to prison for shooting up a convenience store to get $5, and then he comes out and tries to buy a gun. And maybe he's able to get through, maybe not. But then if he doesn't, then he can go out on the street and find one from the imported criminal network. But it's not like they're buying them there. But if they prosecuted those guys, background checks might matter. But they don't prosecute them, so background checks don't make a difference.
Well, and that would also be a deterrent to go in and try to buy a firearm, or try to get somebody, who is, who is affiliated with that person or whatever to try to buy a fire. You know what I mean? There'd be an actual deterrence rather than just, sorry about you. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no consequence to fail a background check. So
right.
What?
Yeah. Well, and here's the other problem is I'm old enough to remember when the Democrats in these high crime cities were letting criminals out of jail for COVID.
Oh, you're right? Old enough for that?
You're old enough?
Yeah. So I know June seemed like a long time ago, but what does that make sense? Yeah, we're going to let a bunch of violent criminals out, and probably violent crimes are going to go up with guns that have been illegally procured anyways.
Well, and I want you to save that thought for in a little while when we talk about the stuff locally, because that is exactly one of the points I wanted to bring up when it comes to this COVID stuff.
Well, I mean, we could get into it now if you want to.
I'm just getting warmed up.
So to finish up what we were just talking about, yeah, I don't think that the background check system works the way that it needs to. So it essentially is irrelevant.
Yeah. And most people don't realize, too, that the NRA was part of the whole NCIS thing, or NICS background check. Like, that was a television show. Yeah, sorry. The NICS background system. Like, that was basically a compromise. And it had a lot of Republican support, and it had NRA support. So you can think about that, too, later on.
Getting a background check doesn't bother me because I know I have nothing to worry about.
Sure. It doesn't really bother me either. But I just think it's unnecessary.
I'm interested, and I'd have to look this up, and I'd probably task it to Steve because he's good at doing that. But like, how many people do the NICS background checks stop from buying firearms?
Oh, I used to actually have that somewhere.
Like how many people who committed violent crimes with firearms were stopped because they couldn't go to a gun store to buy a gun?
I really did used to have that information. I'm actually going through paperwork right now that I might.
I hear that. But I don't think that it stops enough for it to be the driving factor in registration and gun control is to stop criminals from getting guns.
Yeah,
as all of us who are pro Second Amendment know, the only thing that restrictions do is restrict the good people from being able to defend themselves.
And the conspiracy side of me says that that's what it was for.
See, and the conspiracy side of me says it's just to get more guns out of the hands of citizens so that the government can have more control.
Yeah. I don't know if Mark likes that comment.
I know he does. That's why I said conspiracy side.
Well, I mean, this is a political episode, so I've rescinded my rule.
And I know we probably don't agree 100% politically. And honestly, I think that's fantastic. I don't think everybody should. But this stuff just boils my water.
Well, it shouldn't be this complicated and difficult. And I think that no matter what side of the political spectrum you lie on, that you shouldn't, have government agents just at your place of business for doing something that you're legally allowed to do.
Yep.
Right. I think we all know, political affiliation aside, like the Second Amendment community is highly fueled on the fact that like the Second Amendment is not to be infringed. It's not compromise, but we do compromise. And so when it goes too far, it puts everybody in a touchy situation.
Right.
Yep. By design, my friends. By design.
And no matter what you think, it doesn't matter why they're trying to take guns away from law-abiding citizens. It's not okay with anybody who's a gun owner. The only people who are okay with that are the people who don't want guns.
Right. Yep. And even I would say that those people don't understand because they aren't gun owners. And so you can't really make a judgment call on something that you don't understand.
Yeah, I don't understand Subarus. Like, I don't get the coolness of those, but I'm not trying to ban them.
Well, the STI is pretty badass, though.
Yeah, that's true.
He says, meh.
It's not too bad. I like it. But see,
have
Steve
you seen,
and I...
Side note, have you watched the Gymkhana 2020?
Yes, I have. I posted about it the other day.
That's pretty awesome.
I was trying to figure out why they used a Subaru, and then I realized, oh, wait, it's not Ken Block, it's Travis Pastrana. That's why.
That's why.
And then I was trying to figure out what all those fins and wings were for, and it's because they did like a 300-foot jump with it.
Yeah, it was
it
like
goes
the most insane
150
Subaru.
miles an hour.
Yeah, it's like the most insane Subaru ever, and this, that, and the other, and pretty wild stuff.
Yeah.
I will say this. The people who are driving the Subarus that I was referring to definitely are not going 150 miles an hour and not jumping them.
But they think they are.
Well, they got their Subaru Legacy, and they're going up to the trails to pick daisies.
I had a Legacy. It was pretty badass.
Actually, the Legacy is probably one of the better ones. I was trying to think of what that station wagon thing is that everyone has. The Outback.
If you guys, maybe you don't remember, they made a Legacy SUS, and that's what I had, which was basically a lifted Legacy all-wheel drive, and it was pretty awesome.
Yeah. No, they made some good cars, and they're fantastic here for sure. So. Yeah,
I loved that car.
But
side note, anyway,
that's okay. So what the point I was going to make was that that there are people who don't want guns, but I think that number might be going down slowly but surely, which we've talked about a little bit. Steve, you said, I think in a text a couple weeks ago, or maybe earlier this week, is that the NSSF came out with more updated numbers about firearms, background checks, and all that stuff. And I have a state, not our state, but a state story about that as well.
Nice.
So Illinois, of all places, has some record shattering, in the words of the Chicago Tribune, gun sales, firearm owner ID requests, and CCW requests as well. So I think more and more people are understanding why they should have a firearm in their possession.
That's intriguing to me.
So, according to the Illinois State Police, where all the, everything firearms in Illinois is kind of goes through, a 45% increase in inquiries. They call it inquiries in purchasing guns, over last year, totaling about 500,000 in Illinois alone.
Wow.
And they've received almost 450,000 applications for an FOID card, or a firearm owner's ID card, as of November 2020, which is a jump of 167% from 2017. And the same thing, they didn't release the numbers for concealed carry permits, but they did say that the applications in 2020 blew past a previous surge after CCW was first offered in 2013.
That's awesome.
So I think even in places like Illinois, and I imagine in California or New York or other historically anti-gun places, that there's probably a lot of firearm purchases and background checks and all that stuff. So,
and that's it, and that is for the state.
For one state, yeah.
Okay. Well, it's good to see that people are seeing that there's a definite issue. I mean, that definitely correlates with all the new gun owners that we're seeing, and
sure.
I think that should be an indicator of where the country feels right now.
Right, and I think that's what regardless of any kind of political spectrum. I think obviously people are realizing that they need to take their security into their own hands. Well,
look at the McCluskeys; they're Democrats, right?
Yeah,
and they got eaten by their own, basically. Did you hear they were acquitted? That they're not going to try the case?
No.
Yeah. So the state attorney general said, no, we're not prosecuting.
Jeez.
I didn't even realize that. I didn't even realize they had a case.
They didn't have a case, actually.
Yeah. But, they didn't hurt anybody.
I wonder how many free gun classes they've been offered.
Oh yeah, that's the Interesting.
If they're listening, I will give them a free basic handgun class. Free of charge.
I'm sure at this point they're well past basic handgun classes.
Well, I hope so for her sake, because her grip was terrible. The other thing that they brought up that I thought was interesting was they were talking about, and at least in Illinois, that there were the over 500,000 background checks basically, but that they said that number was actually probably a lot higher because of private sales and also because of multiple firearms going on the same 4473. So,
do they have private sales in Illinois?
Yeah, you can have a private sale. I think you just have to show your FOID card.
That's nice. So I was just perusing the NSSF, and we've already talked about the industry report, I think, right?
Yeah, we did an episode on it.
But did we talk about the firearm-related accidents?
I don't
that's
think
in that
we
report?
Did. No, I don't think so.
Sorry, this is another ADD moment, but since 2018, it's at the lowest level ever.
Really?
They say fewer than 1/3% of all unintentional fatalities are involved with firearms. 1/3%.
So that's 0.0003?
Something.
That's
pretty
really
awesome.
Good at math, so
1/3 of 1%.
Well, it's almost like you think that more people that buy firearms want to know how to use them safely.
Weird.
Maybe.
Well, we can tell you that from direct experience because the class volume has gone up dramatically.
Yeah, I'd say it would be one thing if there were a bunch of people who bought guns and then the classes weren't going up, but the classes are going up. I mean, everybody wants to learn how to use a firearm, and I think that's definitely a good sign for everybody, really.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah.
I was trying to find that report I text to you, but I can't find it.
Yeah, because you said, well, let me pull it up actually, because you said something about how it was multiple millions. I mean, it was like even more than last time, if I remember correctly.
It was 19.1 million year to date
in 1 year.
Yep,
that's insane.
January to November.
That's just end this year. November. 19.1 million background checks throughout the country. So that's, awesome. Because that's what a couple months ago, we were talking about, 5 million new gun owners. So, I mean, you think about 19.1, let's say that's 4 times as many. So it has to be more than 5 million new gun owners at this point.
Oh, yeah.
I would even say maybe double.
I would like to sell one holster to 1/3 of that.
Yeah, we'd never hear from you again.
I'd like to teach 1% of those people basic handgun.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. But, like you said, class demand is going up more and more. So, I mean, it's got to be that's a good thing, I would say.
Yeah.
But going over, we talked about national and local. We had something interesting happen locally here. And, we had first talked earlier today off air, I really hadn't read into it all that much. But the more I read into it, the more hilarious, I guess, kind of it got for me.
Some elected officials don't understand geography.
They just, some people, yeah, I'm sure you both can put it better than me. I just think it's silly more than anything else.
It's sad is what it is.
Yeah. But it was Nick's idea, so I'm going to let him introduce it and talk about it.
So you haven't said what we're talking about yet, have you?
No, it's all you.
So Independence, the range, the gun store, right. Independence Indoor Shooting, where we're doing this podcast for, got a letter from the city of Boise that said that they were not in compliance of the city or health order to wear masks and social distancing is the gist of it. But the problem with that is, and the first thing that came to my mind when I want to say 50 people sent me the article from the news because I hadn't seen it yet, the first thing I responded was, wait a second, the range is in Meridian.
Yep.
Not Boise.
It's in a different town.
And it's not like it's right on the border. It's like
No.
a mile.
It's a couple miles.
Over a mile from the actual borderline.
Yeah.
So what that says, and I had a meeting with Ryan and Levi over there this week, so I kind of asked them about it. That's why I wanted to talk about it. But it says that people were calling the, what do you call it? The hotline that Boise set up.
The Auschwitz number?
Yeah, I was going to call it something that I knew that Mark wouldn't like, so I stopped.
I appreciate that.
So people were calling in that hotline and reporting the range for non-compliance, essentially. And
thanks, customers. Thanks.
Yeah, and so it's not just I've called the hotline because I wanted to see what it was. It's not just call in and push one button. It takes 4 or 5 minutes on the phone to get through all of the questions, right? So and I would say that it's not just one person called. They had to have get enough.
Yeah, I thought I read somewhere it was quite a few. I can't remember.
Multiple people.
So the letter is, I guess, when I talked to Levi, he said that when they called and they talked to him, they said that they've had these, once they got through to an actual person, and they told me that the actual person they talked to was nice and they didn't want to like be rude to him because it's not their fault that they sent out the letter.
Right.
But the person on the phone from the city of Boise said, yeah, we've sent some of these letters by mistake to Nampa and Caldwell as well. And
by mistake, like how do you make that mistake?
Apparently they're using some sort of software, so I would assume that you have to get enough complaints to trigger to flag it, which means that people were turning in the range, and which makes me to think no one who was shopping there was trying to get the range shut down.
No, they were just causing a stink.
Yeah, so that's exactly what it was. It's people who are trying to get the store in trouble.
Right. It's probably not even customers.
I bet I know a couple of them too. I bet I could.
Yeah. And so here was the thing. So Levi told me, he said, it wouldn't have been a huge deal. We would have just kind of brushed it off. But when you read through the letter, and this letter's available, I saw it on Idaho Dispatch.
Yeah, you can find it online.
There's a copy of it.
There's a copy of it. Yeah.
So at the bottom of first off, on the letter, it says the Meridian address, which is obvious because they mailed it to Meridian.
Right.
And it has the Meridian zip code. So obviously they don't have to comply with a city ordinance of Boise, which was the first red flag, right? So then on the bottom, it says, Levi goes, it wouldn't have been a huge deal, but at the bottom of the letter, it says, if you do not comply, not only will your store be shut down for, I think it's 6 days, and your business license revoked, which Boise has no right to do to a Meridian business.
Right.
Just putting that out there. But your employees will also be subject to fines and jail time if we deem fit.
Yeah. Who the hell are you?
Yeah, it's very threatening. If it were me as a business owner, I'd be like, yeah, okay, this is not your jurisdiction. I would honestly just throw it in the trash after laughing at it.
So then going back to what I kind of referenced when Steve was talking about what was it? Oh, letting criminals out of jail, right? So we're letting felons and criminals out of jail because of COVID, but we are more than happy to take employees of small businesses to jail for up to 6 months, is what it says in their city ordinance, whatever, health order. 6 months in jail, $1,000 fine is
or
what
both.
it says. Or both. Because you didn't enforce wearing a mask in your business.
Which is not part of the city of Meridian's health mandates, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not part of that. But just think about that. We're letting real criminals out of jail to take people like me and you to jail because we didn't tell a customer he had to wear a mask.
Well, they're trying to.
Yeah. And it's only a matter of time before, because I've been to Boise and I've talked to people who were walking down the street in downtown Boise and got told they needed to put on a mask. No one around them, nothing.
Yeah.
So, and I have a friend, and I won't mention her. She owns a restaurant downtown, and she actually shut it down for the next 3 months and told her landlord she will not be paying rent because the city won't allow her to operate in order to pay. I think her rent on her building is $15,000 a month downtown.
A month.
A month.
Wow.
So she can't operate because they have a code enforcement team that is going into businesses downtown and saying, hey, yeah, you're not in compliance. Here's your fine. And then part of that was she has a lot of big booths, right? So any booth that could seat more than 6 people is not allowed to be used, even if you seat one person in it.
That is so stupid.
So she can't use her restaurant, and it's a high-end restaurant, and they can't be in business.
Interesting. Weird.
So it's one of those things like, do you stand up and stay open, which is what I fight for, but you can't be the only one that does it.
Right.
It takes the whole team of businesses to stand up and say no, and it's going to be really hard to start that rolling.
Yep.
Well, and it's just to bring it back, it's people, they're going nuts over that, but then they send stuff out to Meridian and Caldwell.
Yeah. They're sending that. That's the thing though, because they don't care where it goes. Yeah, it might have been a glitch, but if they can fear the border businesses to do the same thing as Boise, then it's good for politics for them.
Yeah, strange stuff.
Has Boise City responded to this? Like, have they said anything?
So the only thing that Levi told me was that they talked to him and they said, yeah, it was a mistake, and kind of left it at that, which is fine. But then Levi did tell me, he goes, I didn't think it'd be good for business, but we've gotten a ton of support from it. And, bad publicity is good for business, just like good publicity. So actually on Saturday, I saw some posts from people that were tagging me on Instagram and Facebook that they were holding a rally in the parking lot at the range.
That's awesome.
So did people actually show up and everything?
There had to have been some people there because I kept getting tagged, and I didn't see any pictures of it though.
Interesting. But yeah, like you said, I mean, it's any publicity is good publicity in that regard. So,
well, and the gun community is pretty like
active.
Hold up your own type of people. So
Sure.
like if they feel like a gun store is under attack, the people who shop there are going to stand up to support them, and that's exactly what happened. So that's how we know like it wasn't one of our members or one of our customers at the range.
No,
I turned them in.
When I was there all the time, there were some people that lived. There's apartments, behind the store there, and when we built the store, we followed every noise ordinance. We are actually below the maximum decibel. Like we're very, very compliant, but there's still a handful of people in those apartments that just like to cause problems.
Well, and that's the thing I was going to say is that, in my experience with the store is that safety is always top of mind, whether that's, health. I mean, because think about it, with a gun store, you have to worry not only about noise, but about lead exposure. And that's something that we take really seriously too. And I mean, so if we're going to, take that many precautions about our employees, with lead and all that kind of stuff, I mean, obviously we're going to make our customers feel just as safe as well. So,
yeah.
And it's just kind of surprising that, that something like that would happen. I thought it was kind of silly.
Yeah, it was ridiculous, and it was obviously an oversight in the software they were using. That's what they said. But
hopefully that's it.
To be honest with you, my personal opinion is if they get enough complaints, they just sent the letter. Like it's a letter that just has your address and your name pasted into whatever sequence you fell into the
right. And then, but it is kind of interesting that many people would complain about a gun store. I mean,
well, who knows how many complaints it is? Is it 5? Is it 50? Like you don't really know.
What is the line that you have to cross, I guess, to get to that point? But I guess it's kind of disconcerting that many people would complain about a gun store just because it's a gun store,
So I'm asking for a friend. What if we send a bunch of complaints with the mayor's or the city's address?
Well, that was my first thought was, how much non-compliance complaints does it take to get the Boise PD to show up there.
Well, obviously they're not looking at addresses, so they wouldn't even realize that they're sending it to themselves.
That would be pretty funny.
You know, if I was one of those TikTok influencers that had enough clout to get people to make those calls, because I know they do this all the time to get accounts shut down.
So
I would do that.
I wonder if it would be a bad thing to just, I mean, it would be interesting to see what would happen. Like, I know, we have a lot of people that, I'm just saying, that'd be interesting. I'm not saying do it by any means, but I'm not saying not to do it either.
We're not going to endorse or, deter anybody from doing anything that they would like to do, I suppose.
I just think it might be an interesting experiment.
Could be. Very well could be.
But tomorrow on my Instagram story, Hoftech Industries, I will post the phone number.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, and that, speaking of the phone number, you said that, you actually have to like put some effort in to actually make this complaint or whatever. So who would go through the time to do that? You know what I mean? It just seems like a lot of effort.
Well, you would be surprised at the effort that, I use this term loosely, liberals are willing to go through to make other people's lives unhappy.
How anonymous is that phone number?
It's 100% anonymous unless they're tracking your phone number. They don't ask you for your name or anything.
Okay.
So anybody can just call on any business they want to, whether they're actually following guidelines or not, or clearly whether they're in Boise or not. Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
Weird.
Absolutely.
Very weird. Seems like not very well executed, or that there's some gaps for some exploitation, as it were.
A little bit of an oversight there. Maybe they forgot something.
Could be.
Well, so, I think the most important thing for that ordinance was that they showed a level of like enforcement on people who were not going to comply with their health, their emergency health order is what it's called.
Well, there's no jurisdiction anyway.
Yeah, exactly. But it's all about it's the fear tactic of if you don't comply to our health order, we'll send you a letter. If you don't comply to that, we'll take away your business license. And if you don't comply to that, we'll fine you and take you to jail. I mean, what law-abiding person wants to do something that's going to send them to jail?
Probably nobody, unless
because we've all been told like if it's going to send you to jail, it's probably not the right thing. But
or at the very least, it's not worth the fight.
Yeah, and so at this point, it's coming down to, is it worth the fight?
Yeah.
I mean, if they were truly going to come and take the employees of the store to jail and fine them, like, I'm pretty sure that we would all stand up for them.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of that is one good thing about the gun community is that we are all kind of in it together, you know?
Yep.
So.
Yeah, but we got our little 5 minutes of fame, I guess.
Nice.
But yeah, it's a crazy time in the gun world right now. I mean, I wish I could say more so than usual, but it seems to be par for the course now. Whether it's national or whether it's local or somewhere in between, it seems like, people are buying more guns than ever, and it's harder to get a gun now than it ever was.
Frustrating.
The scary part is that if you buy something, now you're at risk of having an ATF agent show up at your door when you bought some parts.
Yeah. I mean, especially the Brownells thing makes me, a little uncomfortable because it's like, you can't buy online with cash usually. So there's got to be a record one way or another of it. And that record's got to be there.
It was one thing when they were able to find out who bought a firearm by filling out a 4473.
Mm-hmm.
It's another thing for them to show up at your house because you bought some parts together and didn't commit a crime and didn't do anything. But now they showed up and they took those parts because now, according to what they've just shown precedence in, you can't buy parts A, B, C, and D together.
Nope, because boy, that would be bad.
Well, yeah. What if you bought a barrel and upper, like basically everything except for the lower from Brownells or from any other place all at once? I mean, is that going to flag you for being, a sketchy person or a person of interest or whatever?
Yeah, apparently.
I don't know.
Yeah, you can't do anything. Just stand in line and mind your P's and Q's.
Well, we'll find out, but I think we'll call that for now, because I was going to say I think either the next episode or the episode after we'll have to do our predictions for 2021, just in case you were worried about, a lack of doom and gloom.
Nobody's worried about that.
Not with Steve around.
I think we're going to be in surplus of doom and gloom for the next little while. And I don't disagree with that, but I also think there could be a lot of opportunity as well. I mean, just to try and stay positive with some things. Because, I'm not excited about the upcoming administration at all. And I think there's going to be some really frustrating things, but there might be some really good things that come out of it too. I guess we just got to wait and see.
Yeah. Well, we can, let's formulate our predictions and come back next week or the week after and go from there. What do you say?
It. Absolutely. Sounds good to me.
Cool. Well, we'll call it for now. Thank you guys, and thank you all for listening. We'll talk to you next time. But if you have any additional comments or questions or anything you'd like us to talk about, let us know. Podcast at iishooting.com or Facebook and Instagram at Range Minded Podcast.
Right on, guys. Be safe. Take somebody shooting.
Yep. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening to Range Minded. Find us online at Range Minded Podcast on Facebook, or send us an email at podcast@iishooting.com. We're always happy to get feedback, episode suggestions, whatever you want to send us, really. And be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and pretty much wherever else you get your podcasts from. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.